So how many times today have you felt like your brain is just, moving way faster than your thumbs can actually type?
Oh, constantly. It's a daily struggle.
Right. You're
Yeah.
just sitting there staring at a screen, maybe it's your phone or your laptop, and you have this crystal clear, brilliant thought.
You know exactly what you want to say.
Exactly. The logic is totally sound, the phrasing in your head is perfect,
Yeah.
but to actually get it out into the world, you have to funnel it through this archaic bottleneck.
Your fingers.
Yeah. Your fingers tapping away on a grid of little plastic squares or, your thumbs just awkwardly pecking at a piece of glass.
And you hit backspace.
You hit backspace, you auto-correct some weird typo that changes definitely to defiantly for the 100th time.
Which completely ruins the tone of the email.
It really does. And you just lose the entire rhythm of your own brilliance, just trying to get the words down.
Yeah, the friction is real.
It is.
Yeah.
And if you have felt that friction today, you are absolutely not alone. But the incredible thing is, we all just accept it, right? We treat it like the weather.
It's just a fact of life.
Right. But what if I told you that the friction you're feeling is actually the death rattle of a 150-year-old paradigm?
It really is a profound realization when you step back and look at the whole history of human-computer interaction.
Yeah, because we don't really think about it.
We don't. We are just so deeply conditioned to accept the QWERTY keyboard, which, by the way, is a layout literally invented in the 1870s to prevent mechanical typewriter keys from jamming.
That's wild when you say it out loud.
It is, and we accept that as the default interface between human intention and machine action. But fundamentally, it's just a translation layer.
And a really inefficient one.
A highly inefficient, totally lossy translation layer.
And that translation layer is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We are exploring this really fascinating collection of sources.
There's some really provocative stuff in there.
Oh, extremely provocative, including a manifesto by a writer named Paramendra Kumar Bhagat, alongside some recent updates surrounding this incredibly buzzy AI company called WisprFlow. Now, I want to be really clear right out of the gate for you listening. We're not just talking about getting a slightly better dictation app on your phone.
Definitely not. If that's what you think this is, you really need to recalibrate.
Yeah. We are examining the argument that the entire era of the keyboard is coming to an end. We're looking at the birth of what our sources call the VoiceOS.
And this radically aggressive business framework designed to capture this new era.
Right, which Bhagat refers to as the Solara Paradigm.
So just to set the stage for you, we are analyzing a company that is already operating at staggering scale and speed. Wispr Flow has raised $81 million to date.
81 million.
Yeah. They're sitting at a post-money valuation of around $700 million. They have insane market momentum.
But the core tension we're exploring today is that Bhagat, acting as this outside observer, is looking at this massive textbook success.
Right.
And he's urging the founders to completely abandon the traditional Silicon Valley playbook.
He literally wants them to walk away from the safe, predictable path of becoming a billion-dollar unicorn.
To chase what he sees as an all-or-nothing trillion-dollar destiny.
Which is a wild pivot to suggest to a successful company.
Okay, so we really need to unpack the rocket ship they are currently flying before we can understand why someone is telling them to completely tear up their flight plan.
Makes sense. Let's start with the product itself.
Right. The core product is called Wispr Flow, though it's branded simply as Flow. And the consumer pitch is dead simple. Don't type, just speak.
But the way it actually executes this is fundamentally different from that little microphone icon that's been sitting on your smartphone keyboard for, the last 10 years?
Oh, totally different. Flow is positioned as a VoiceOS.
Yeah.
It functions horizontally across your devices, Mac, Windows, iPhone, Android.
It integrates directly into whatever application you already have open.
Right, and that concept of horizontal integration is the critical architectural piece we need to understand here.
Exactly, because think about how traditional dictation software has worked for the last 2 decades.
It's clunky.
So clunky. You usually have to open a separate dedicated application. You talk into it, you watch the text populate.
And you copy that text.
Right, you copy it, you minimize the app, you open your email client, and you paste it in.
Which takes forever.
That context switching is the friction that kills adoption. It just breaks your workflow. But with Flow, the AI operates as this invisible layer running in the background of your whole operating system.
So if you're in your email client, you speak, and the text just appears in the email.
Exactly. If you're in a Slack channel, you speak, it appears in Slack. If you're a developer inside a coding environment,
You speak, And the code populates.
The input method changes, but your visual context remains exactly the same.
And the speed claims in our sources are just wild. They're claiming it gives you 4 times your normal typing speed.
4 times.
Yeah. So a reasonably competent typist might hit, I don't know, 45, maybe 50 words per minute. Flow is getting users up to roughly 220 words per minute.
Wow.
But here's the thing. Raw transcription speed isn't actually the breakthrough here. We've had fast transcription for a while.
Right. Fast doesn't mean good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The breakthrough is what they call the zero-edit experience.
Which is a massive technical hurdle to overcome because pure literal transcription is actually quite jarring.
And mostly useless for professional communication.
Totally useless. If you read a literal word-for-word transcript of how humans naturally speak, it is an absolute mess.
It's terrible.
It's filled with ums, uhs, false starts, repeated words.
Sterling thoughts.
Absolute grammatical train wrecks. We are messy, iterative communicators.
We really are. And traditional dictation acts like a court stenographer, right?
Yeah.
He just blindly types the exact sounds you make, stutters and all.
But Flow is built on a completely different underlying architecture. It uses large language models to act more like a ghostwriter.
A ghostwriter. I like that.
Yeah, the zero-edit experience means the AI isn't just mapping audio to text. It's extracting the blueprint or the intent of your messy audio.
Well, that's interesting.
And then it reconstructs the sentence from scratch using the correct syntax. It auto-detects over 100 languages.
Wow.
It edits your rambling speech for clarity in real time. It removes all the fillers and fixes the formatting before the text even hits the screen.
Right. And it learns your personal dictionary, which I find really fascinating.
That's a huge feature.
Because if you think about it, traditional AI models are trained on, like, generalized public data. But my vocabulary is incredibly specific to my life.
Very specific.
Right. If I use specific industry jargon, like saying SaaS for software as a service, or if I'm constantly referencing a coworker with a really unique spelling of their name.
The system learns that locally.
Exactly. It even adapts its tone based on the context of where you're typing.
Which is brilliant.
It is. If you're dictating into a professional email client like Outlook, it structures the output formally. But if you're just dropping a message into a casual direct message, it keeps it relaxed.
To use an analogy, it's like having an incredibly competent, highly paid executive assistant sitting right next to you.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to dictate the punctuation.
You don't say comma or new paragraph.
You just give this chaotic, unstructured brain dump, and the assistant translates your chaos into exactly what you meant to say, perfectly polished and ready to send.
And that distinction between transcription and translation is vital here. We are witnessing the shift from transcription, which is just a dumb acoustic mapping process,
Right.
to intent understanding voice AI. The software is actually grasping the underlying goal of your communication.
And because it's doing this at the system level, the implications go way beyond just, consumer convenience.
Oh, absolutely.
Our sources highlight some serious enterprise-grade architecture here. Like, Flow is unready on all its plans.
And we really should pause on that because achieving HIPAA compliance for an AI dictation tool is not trivial at all.
Not at all. HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, means the software can legally and securely handle protected patient health information without violating privacy laws.
Right. And for an AI company to be HIPAA ready, it means they have to fundamentally silo their data architecture.
They can't mix the data.
Exactly. They cannot take a doctor's dictated notes about a patient's diagnosis and feed that data back into their massive centralized training models to make the general AI smarter.
You have a guarantee zero data leakage.
Yes. And on top of that, the enterprise tier of Flow has achieved SOC2 Type 2 compliance.
Which is a big deal.
A huge deal. For those unfamiliar, SOC2 Type 2 is essentially the gold standard for data security in the software as a service industry.
It's not just a checklist.
No, it doesn't just mean you have a good security policy written down on a piece of paper somewhere. It means an independent auditor has monitored your servers, your employee access logs.
Your encryption protocol.
All of it over an extended period of time, usually 6 to 12 months, and verify that you actually follow those secure practices every single day.
Which really proves they're not just, moving fast and breaking things. They are building real enterprise-grade plumbing.
Yeah. And we see that plumbing being used in highly technical fields. The sources note that Flow integrates directly with developer tools.
Like actual coding environments.
Yeah, programmers are using it natively within complex coding environments like Cursor and VS Code to dictate raw code and write repository commit messages.
Okay, to build something that seamless, that operates with minimal latency across all those different operating systems and passes stringent enterprise security audits,
Yeah.
you need a very specific kind of engineering culture.
You really do. You need a relentless, almost obsessive focus on the core product.
And that brings us to the leadership dynamics outlined in the sources, specifically focusing on the founders of Wispr Flow, Tanay Kothari, and Sahaj Garg. Kothari, the CEO, has a background in computer science and artificial intelligence from Stanford. He's a former competitive programmer, a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree.
Very impressive resume.
Very. But what the sources really highlight isn't his resume. It's his incredibly public, highly transparent presence on X, formerly Twitter.
Yes, his social media presence is a fascinating case study in what Silicon Valley calls founder mode.
Founder mode, yeah.
He doesn't use his platform for polished corporate PR announcements written by some marketing team.
No, he really doesn't.
He uses it to document the actual anxiety-inducing reality of building a hyper-growth startup.
And there is one specific anecdote he shared that the sources used to illustrate the DNA of this whole company. The story of the NPS panic.
Ah, the NPS panic. It is a perfect encapsulation of the dangers of early success.
Walk us through it.
So NPS stands for Net Promoter Score. It's a very standard metric used across the business world to gauge customer loyalty.
Right.
You basically ask your users, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this product to a friend?
Classic survey question.
Exactly. You take the percentage of people who give you a 9 or a 10, your promoters, and you subtract the percentage of people who give you a 6 or below, your detractors.
Okay.
A score above 0 is technically good. A score of 50 is considered excellent. Kothari shared that Wispr Flow had a stellar NPS of 70.
Wow, 70 is huge.
Users were absolutely obsessed with it. But then, suddenly, that score dropped to 35.
Oh, man.
It literally got cut in half. The entire engineering and product team went into full panic mode.
I bet. And the reason it dropped is the classic startup trap, right?
Yep.
The product was getting massive traction. Users loved the core dictation. But then they started demanding that Flow do everything.
They wanted it to be a meeting recorder that sits in on Zoom calls.
They wanted autonomous AI note-taking.
They wanted to be able to launch other applications with their voice.
And like any eager young startup trying to please a rapidly growing and vocal user base, the team started diverting engineering resources to build those peripheral features.
They fell headfirst into feature creep.
Yeah, they took their eye off the core zero-edit dictation experience to build shiny new toys.
But here is the crucial insight from the sources. Kothari publicly stated that this sudden, terrifying drop in customer satisfaction was actually the best thing that could have happened to the company at that stage.
Wait, really? The best thing?
He says it was a wake-up call. It forced them to aggressively kill those new ideas, scrap the meeting recorders and the app launchers, and refocus entirely on perfecting the core product quality.
Okay, but I really have to push back on Kothari's framing here.
Go for it.
Because calling a 50% drop in customer satisfaction a victory feels like a massive dose of revisionist history. Or, just founder spin.
It definitely sounds like spin at first.
Right. If you're an early-stage startup, your early adopters are your lifeblood. They are the ones paying the bills and evangelizing the product.
Absolutely true.
So if you suddenly pull the plug on the new features they specifically asked for, and your satisfaction score is already plummeting, how do you survive that kind of whiplash?
It's a huge risk.
You can't just tell paying customers no and expect them to stick around. How does the company not just bleed out its user base right then and there?
That is exactly the right question to ask, and it gets to the heart of why Kothari's specific brand of leadership actually works.
Okay, explain that.
The answer, according to the analysis of his approach, lies in using extreme transparency as a competitive moat.
Transparency is a moat.
Yeah, think about it. When a founder goes public on a platform with thousands of followers and says, listen, we messed up, we lost focus, we tried to build too many things at once, our core product suffered, our score dropped, and here's exactly the technical roadmap of how we are fixing it. It radically changes the dynamic with the user base.
Oh, I see.
You are no longer a faceless corporation taking away features. You're a human being bringing the customer inside the building. It builds an immense amount of empathy and trust.
Okay, so the users are actually willing to forgive the removal of the shiny toys because they respect the commitment to making the main tool flawless again.
Precisely. And Kothari's commitment to that core product isn't just a PR narrative. The sources detail the operational reality behind it.
What does he actually do?
Well, he personally spends hours shadowing new engineering hires to ensure they understand the exact standard of the core code base.
Hours just shadowing.
Yeah. And even more intensely, he dedicates one full day a month to just silently shadowing his existing team members as they work.
Wait, silently shadowing his own team for a whole day?
A full day. He claims this yields massive productivity gains because he can spot inefficiencies in their internal tooling or communication bottlenecks that he would literally never see from a CEO dashboard.
Wow. That kind of intense boots-on-the-ground focus ensures that when leadership says, we are prioritizing the core dictation experience above all else, the entire organization is culturally aligned to execute it.
It's completely aligned.
And we see that exact same hyper-deliberate, disciplined strategy playing out in their global expansion, particularly in their launch in the Indian market.
That's a fascinating part of their strategy.
It really is.
Yeah.
Now, historically, India is often viewed by Western tech companies simply as a price-sensitive market, right?
Yeah, that's the standard assumption.
The traditional playbook is to strip down your product, remove the heavy compute features, and offer a degraded, cheap version just to capture raw user numbers.
But Kothari completely flipped that script. He recognized that Indian users aren't just price-sensitive, they are spending-conscious.
Which is a subtle but really vital economic distinction.
Very vital.
Price-sensitive implies people just want the cheapest thing possible, regardless of quality. Spending conscious means they have disposable income and are willing to pay for software, but their threshold for realizing value is incredibly high.
They demand undeniable, reliable utility before they open their wallets.
Exactly. So Wispr Flow didn't degrade the AI models for India. They kept the premium, zero-edit, intent understanding architecture, but they localized the pricing specifically for the purchasing power of that market.
Right. They dropped the price to around 300 rupees, which is about $3.30 a month.
And by combining that highly accessible localized pricing with total transparency about the product's premium reliability, they experienced something remarkable.
What happened?
They secured much higher annual commitments than they projected. Users weren't just buying a cheap monthly trial and churning. They were subscribing for the entire year up front because the value proposition was so clear and the tool was so reliable.
It is a masterclass in finding product-market fit on a global scale. By having the discipline to say no to feature creep during the NPS panic and saying yes to relentless cross-platform reliability, they built an incredibly sticky product.
Very sticky. And the financial traction outlined in the sources reflects that discipline perfectly.
The traction numbers are honestly staggering.
Let's look at the financial architecture of what they have built. They raised a $30 million series round led by Menlo Ventures, which is a massive Tier 1 firm.
Huge firm.
And then almost immediately, they followed it up with a $25 million extension round led by Notable Capital.
More fuel for the fire.
Exactly. But the revenue growth is what justifies that capital. They experienced a 10x growth in annual recurring revenue, or ARR, in just 5 months.
Just 5 months. That's absurd.
It is. For our listeners, ARR is the holy grail metric for software as a service companies. It measures the predictable, compounding subscription revenue you can count on year over year. To multiply that by 10 in under half a year is hypergrowth territory.
Pure hypergrowth.
At their peak during this run, they were seeing 40% month-over-month revenue growth. And they have teams actively using the platform in 270 Fortune 500 companies.
But perhaps the most impressive metric of all, and the one that truly signals a paradigm shift, is their retention rate.
Oh yeah, the retention rate.
They are reporting a 70% one-year user retention rate.
Which is absurd for a consumer-facing application.
Totally unheard of.
Most consumer apps are thrilled if they can keep 20 or 30% of their users after a year.
Exactly. A 70% retention rate indicates that this isn't just a novelty. It indicates that once people take the time to integrate Flow into their daily workflows, their behavior fundamentally changes.
They simply cannot go back to the friction of typing.
No, they can't. The sources note a fascinating impossible retention numbers, deep enterprise penetration, and the smartest people in Silicon Valley singing your praises.
They're sitting incredibly pretty at a $700 million valuation, executing the classic Silicon Valley playbook flawlessly.
And yet,
And yet.
according to the central manifesto we are examining by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat, this very success, this intense focus on perfecting the core dictation product, might actually be their most fatal strategic vulnerability.
Okay, this is where the narrative of the sources shifts dramatically and where the intellectual provocation really begins. Bhagat looks at this $700 million success story and introduces what he calls the Jack Dorsey mistake.
Right. The Jack Dorsey mistake.
Okay, Jack Dorsey co-founded Twitter and Square, two massively influential multi-billion-dollar companies that basically defined Web 2.0 and modern fintech. Calling anything he did a mistake is a pretty bold opening move.
It is bold, but his reasoning is structurally sound. Bhagat argues that Dorsey had his hands on a new revolutionary paradigm, the advent of mobile, real-time, global connectivity. But instead of completely shattering the old constraints of communication, Dorsey simply used this new technology to optimize an old artificial constraint, the 140-character limit of SMS text messages.
Ah, right. Because early Twitter was based on SMS?
Exactly. Twitter was revolutionary for its speed, but it still forced human thought through the tiny, restrictive funnel of a text box. The analogy Bhagat uses to drive this home is brilliant. He says Dorsey got a car and used it to go every place he used to go walking, just faster.
Oh, I see. He invented the internal combustion engine, but restricted it to the speed and routing of a walking path.
Exactly.
So how does Bhagat apply that critique to Wispr Flow today?
Well, Bhagat argues that right now, in this exact moment, Wispr Flow is making the exact same structural mistake.
Really?
Yeah. They have built a revolutionary underlying technology, the intent understanding VoiceOS. They have built the rocket ship, but they are deploying it like a bicycle. If you look at the history of computing, the graphical user interface, the GUI with its overlapping windows and mouse clicks, and the touchscreen interface, those were bicycles.
They were tools.
They were incredible tools that amplified human effort, but they still required fundamental physical constraints. They required literacy to read the menus. They required visual attention to stare at a screen. They required physical dexterity to manipulate a mouse or tap a glass surface.
Right.
Voice, Bhagat argues, is not a bicycle. Voice is a rocket. It requires none of those physical constraints.
But right now, Wispr Flow's entire go-to-market strategy is simply better dictation everywhere.
Yes. They are using this profound, friction-destroying technological leap just to make filling out a traditional GUI-based text box a little bit faster.
So wait, if being a highly successful $700 million company with 70% retention and legendary investors backing you is somehow a mistake, what on earth is this manifesto saying they're supposed to be doing?
This brings us to the core thesis of Bhagat's entire argument. The existential choice between what he defines as the unicorn paradigm and the Solara paradigm.
Okay, let's break those down.
The unicorn paradigm is the standard, rational Silicon Valley dream that has governed the last 15 years of venture capital. You find a niche. You build one killer product that solves one specific problem better than anyone else.
Like dictation.
Exactly. You protect your margins, you scale your sales team predictably, you fend off competitors in your specific vertical, and you aim for a safe $1 to $2 billion exit or public offering.
It is highly rational, it minimizes risk, and it is exactly what Wispr Flow is currently executing to perfection.
But Bhagat is saying that for this specific technological breakthrough, playing it safe and rational is actually a massive failure of imagination.
He introduces this concept of the Solara Paradigm, and the name implies solar scale ambition.
Yes, massive scale.
This isn't about building a neat tool for productivity nerds. It's about chasing the seemingly impossible to build an empire of interconnected products that fundamentally redefine how humanity interacts with machines.
The financial demand Bhagat makes to achieve the Solara vision is incredibly aggressive, almost uncomfortably so.
What does he want them to do?
He argues that Wispr Flow must project a 10x ambition vision immediately. He says they need to stop optimizing the dictation app, go back to the venture capital markets right now, pitch a massive world-altering platform vision, and raise hundreds of millions of dollars at a $5 to $10 billion valuation today.
Today.
Yes. And they need to do it precisely because their product market fit is white hot. They need to strike while the iron is at its absolute hottest.
I have to say, it is such a wild proposition from a business operations standpoint. It's like someone walking into NASA and saying, hey, congratulations, you proved the thrusters work perfectly in the upper atmosphere, the fuel efficiency is great, the telemetry is solid, now stop tinkering with the aerodynamics of this one single test shuttle and just build the entire fleet of starships to colonize Mars by Tuesday.
The NASA analogy captures the audacity of it for sure, but there is a ruthless, defensive business logic underneath Bhagat's demand.
Defend it for me.
It comes down to platform dynamics. Bhagat's argument is that a true VoiceOS is not a feature. It is not an application that sits passively on your iPhone screen next to Instagram and Spotify.
It's bigger than that.
A VoiceOS is the fundamental substrate. It is a foundational layer of intelligence that will sit on top of and eventually supersede the operating systems we use today, like iOS and Android.
Oh, wow.
If the interface becomes pure intent, if you just speak to the machine and the machine does the work, then the underlying operating system becomes invisible.
Because you don't need to tap on the apps anymore.
Exactly. And if Wispr Flow doesn't aggressively claim this territory and build a massive ecosystem of native apps right now, the window of opportunity will slam shut.
Because the giants will wake up.
Because giants like Apple or Google, who own the hardware and the current OS layers, will eventually figure out how to integrate good enough intent-driven voice AI at the system level.
Right. And then they just crush WisprFlow.
Exactly. By raising massive capital at a multi-billion-dollar valuation today, Wispr Flow prevents massive equity dilution for the founders later, and it gives them an immediate war chest to hire thousands of engineers and build an aggressive, insurmountable moat before the incumbents wake up.
Okay, if we assume they raise this massive war chest, let's unpack exactly what this trillion-dollar VoiceOS ecosystem actually looks like. Because Bhagat doesn't just offer vague, visionary platitudes. He literally outlines 10 specific pillars.
10 interconnected product verticals.
Right, that WisprFlow must build simultaneously to create this insurmountable moat. He essentially argues that you have to build all 10 to win the whole board.
It's all or nothing.
So if you are listening to this on your commute or while doing dishes right now, think about the apps you have open on your phone. You have a browser, a text app, maybe a health tracker, a work email client. Bhagat isn't saying WisprFlow will build one app to compete with them. He is saying WisprFlow needs to become the invisible, intelligent layer underneath every single one of those functions.
Exactly.
Let's really dive into the mechanics of these 10 pillars, because each one represents a paradigm shift on its own.
We have to start with the foundation. The first pillar is what they already have. Flow Core.
The dictation tool.
Yes. This is the universal dictation layer for every app on Earth. This is the zero-edit, intent-understanding engine that they have already proven works. It is the tip of the spear.
It's the hook.
Exactly. It's the frictionless hook that gets hundreds of millions of people onto the platform and training the underlying models.
Right. The core dictation is the Trojan horse. But then we immediately jump to Pillar 2, which represents a massive leap in capability, the Jarvis agent.
And here we are moving from passive dictation to autonomous action.
Break that down.
Well, in Flow Core, you were saying, draft an email to Sarah saying, I'll be late, and the AI types it out for you to hit send. In the Jarvis agent model, you were saying, reschedule my 2 o'clock meeting with Sarah, update the Salesforce CRM to reflect the new time, and pull the latest Q3 sales numbers into a brief for me to read on the train.
Whoa.
The AI isn't just typing words. It is executing complex, multi-step workflows across completely different software APIs based purely on spoken intent.
And the engineering required for that is orders of magnitude more complex than dictation.
It's incredibly difficult.
Because it requires a deep semantic understanding of not just human language, but of the user's entire digital ecosystem. The LLM has to know how to authenticate into Salesforce, how to query a database, how to read a calendar interface, and how to sequence those actions logically without human intervention.
It is the realization of the sci-fi assistant we have been promised for decades, finally made possible because the intent extraction layer is flawless.
Okay, once the AI understands intent well enough to take action, the logical next bottleneck is human-to-human communication. Which brings us to Pillar 3, voicemail or voice comms.
Now, when I first read voicemail in the source, it sounded like a massive step backward.
It's like, who wants to leave a voicemail in 2026?
Right. But what he means is a native format-agnostic voice messaging platform where you speak your intent once, and the system adapts the message perfectly for the specific recipient.
Exactly. It decouples the medium of input from the medium of output.
Think about it like this. Imagine you're managing a complex project. You leave a rambling 2-minute voice note into the voice comms platform outlining a sudden pivot in strategy.
Okay.
The platform processes your intent and distributes it seamlessly based on who needs what. It delivers it to your lead software engineer as a highly structured, bulleted list of technical tasks directly in Jira. Simultaneously, it delivers the same intent to your marketing director as a polished, persuasive Slack message summarizing the campaign pivot. And it drafts a formal, legally compliant email summary to send to your investors.
So the input medium, your voice, is fluid and effortless. The intent remains constant, but the output format adapts dynamically to the recipient's needs.
It's mind-bending. You are essentially eliminating the cognitive load of having to context switch your communication style for different audiences.
Okay, pillar 4 is where my brain really starts to hurt and where I think the engineering reality faces its toughest test. Voice code.
This one is huge.
This is described as a full integrated development environment, or IDE, where developers describe software features using natural language and the system autonomously builds, debugs, and deploys the code. Now, we already mentioned that Flow currently integrates with tools like Cursor to let developers dictate Python or JavaScript. But voice code is a whole different level of abstraction.
It is the ultimate, inevitable evolution of programming. If you look at the history of software engineering, it is just a series of abstraction layers designed to make it easier for humans to tell machines what to do.
Right. We went from physically punching holes in paper cards
To writing assembly language, to high-level compiled languages like C++, to scripting languages like Python.
and voice code suggests that the final abstraction layer is simply natural human language.
A developer could sit down and say, build a secure user login flow using OAuth 2.0, ensure the data storage complies with European GDPR privacy regulations, and deploy the staging environment to AWS.
And it just does it.
The VoiceOS understands the architectural intent, writes the underlying code, runs the test suites, identifies and fixes the syntax bugs, and pushes it live. It lowers the barrier to entry for software creation from knowing how to write syntax to simply having a logical, structural idea.
But I have to challenge the reality of this. I hear what the manifesto is saying, but building a fully autonomous IDE isn't just about extracting intent from voice.
What's the roadblock?
It's about compiler logic, understanding legacy code bases, and preventing AI hallucinations from introducing catastrophic security vulnerabilities. You can't just throw speech-to-text engineers at a compiler problem and expect a flawless IDE.
Which is exactly why Bhagat insists they need to raise billions of dollars. His argument is that you use the massive capital to acquire the best specialized compiler teams and LLM coding experts in the world, and you integrate them into the VoiceOS ecosystem.
Okay, buying the talent.
Yes. And if voice code democratizes software creation, Pillar 5 does the same for media. Voice Create.
Voice Create.
This is envisioned as a global, multimedia content studio powered entirely by voice. Speech goes in, and fully auto-localized multimedia comes out.
So instead of needing a team of graphic designers, video editors, and translators, you just act as the creative director.
Exactly. You could verbally describe a marketing campaign. Give me a 30-second video clip with an upbeat cinematic feel explaining our new enterprise pricing tier. Use our brand colors, and localize it for the Japanese and Brazilian markets.
That's insane.
The platform generates the visual assets, writes the script, generates the voiceover in native-sounding, lip-synced Japanese and Portuguese, and formats the aspect ratios perfectly for TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
It turns every single user into an entire global production studio. The friction of creation just drops to zero.
Then we get to Pillar 6, which grounds this massive creative power back into the rigid structures of the corporate world. Voice Enterprise.
This is the suite of workflow automation tools specifically designed for highly regulated industries like operations, sales, legal, and medicine.
Right, and the key differentiator here is compliance and shared organizational knowledge. We talked about HIPAA and SOC2 earlier, which they are already building toward.
Yes.
But imagine the compounding efficiency in a hospital setting where all the doctors, nurses, and medical administrators share a unified, secure voice enterprise dictionary.
Oh, the localized dictionaries, but scaled across the whole hospital.
Exactly. A doctor dictates notes while walking rapidly down a noisy hallway. The system perfectly captures the complex, specialized medical terminology, securely updates the patient's electronic health record in real time,
It automatically generates the necessary prescription orders to the pharmacy.
and it queues up the exact billing codes for the insurance department, all seamlessly, securely, and instantly without anyone ever touching a keyboard.
It eliminates the administrative bloat that is just crushing modern healthcare.
Then we reach Pillar 7, which, from a sociological perspective, might be the most profoundly transformative piece of the entire Solara paradigm, VoiceWeb.
The web browser.
This is an illiterate-friendly, fully language-agnostic web browser. Think about the fundamental exclusionary assumption built into every single web browser today, from Chrome to Safari. You must be able to read and write to navigate the internet.
Right. You have to type a URL into an address bar, or you have to type a text-based query into a search engine, and then you have to actually read the text-based results.
VoiceWeb shatters that barrier entirely. You can speak any query in any language, dialect, or regional accent.
And then what?
The VoiceOS searches the global multilingual internet, translates the relevant findings, synthesizes the information into a cohesive answer, and speaks the results back to you conversationally.
Wow.
If you are using a screen, it adapts the information visually. It unlocks the entirety of accumulated human knowledge for the billions of people globally who have never touched a keyboard or learned to read text.
It makes the internet native to human biology, rather than forcing humans to adapt to machine syntax.
Exactly. And Pillar 8 pushes this intelligence beyond screens entirely. Voice Hardware OS.
Hardware OS.
This is the foundational control layer for wearables, smart cars, smart homes, and the entire Internet of Things. Because right now, talking to your car or your smart speaker is incredibly frustrating.
It really is. The latency is high, and the intelligence is rigidly limited to basic commands like turn up the volume.
Exactly, because current hardware voice assistants are isolated, narrow AI systems. If VoiceOS becomes the universal intent layer, it shouldn't matter if you were talking to your iPhone, your refrigerator, or the steering wheel of your car.
Your voice controls the physical world with the exact same seamless intelligence, zero latency, and shared personal dictionary that you use to write your emails. A car understands your intent just as flawlessly as the Jarvis agent does.
Right. Pillar 9 shifts the focus to personal development. VoiceLearn, a highly personalized, offline-capable education tutor.
Okay.
Because the VoiceOS processes every interaction you have, it understands the user deeply. It knows their natural pacing, their native language nuances, and most importantly, it identifies their specific knowledge gaps.
So it adapts.
It can act as a tireless one-on-one tutor. A child could ask, "Why is the sky blue?" And the system explains it using metaphors tailored exactly to that child's current comprehension level, adapting its tone in real time if the child's voice indicates confusion or frustration.
It provides elite, personalized tutoring to anyone on Earth.
And finally, we arrive at Pillar 10, voice health.
Not just medical dictation.
No, this isn't just the medical dictation we discussed in the enterprise section. It is a proactive accessibility and wellness suite for the individual user.
Like what?
It could include private therapy journaling, where you simply talk out your anxieties at the end of the day, fully encrypted and localized. But crucially, because the AI is constantly processing the micro nuances of your acoustic voice data over years, it can offer proactive health insights.
That's where it gets really sci-fi.
Our sources specifically highlight the medical reality that microfluctuations and tremors in voice patterns can be early indicators of neurological conditions like Parkinson's disease.
Oh, wow.
Often detectable by AI years before physical symptoms manifest.
Okay, so when you lay out these 10 pillars, core dictation, Jarvis agents, voice comms, voice code, voice create, voice enterprise, voice web, voice hardware, voice learn, and voice health, you start to see the network effects Bhagat is obsessing over.
Yes, it's not just a list of 10 random disconnected apps.
No, every single product feeds data into the shared foundation models. The shared personal dictionary and the cross-device sync create an absolutely insurmountable data moat.
Exactly. Every time a developer uses voice code, it makes the logic of the Jarvis agent smarter. Every time someone queries VoiceWeb, the translation models for voice create get more accurate.
It creates a flywheel of intelligence that no competitor could ever replicate, because no competitor would have access to that breadth of multidisciplinary user intent.
It's brilliant.
Okay, the vision is undeniably staggering. It's a brilliant piece of technological theorizing, but I have to throw a massive reality check red flag on the play here.
Let's hear it.
Wait a minute. We literally just spent the first half of this deep dive talking about how CEO Tanay Kothari saved his company from the brink of disaster when his NPS score dropped to 35.
Yes, we did.
And how exactly did he save it? By aggressively, ruthlessly killing feature creep. By saying no to building new things and focusing entirely on the core dictation app. Now, this Solara framework is marching in. and telling him to simultaneously build a software development compiler environment, a global multimedia rendering studio, a HIPAA-compliant health diagnostic app, an entirely new global web browser, and an operating system for smart cars.
It sounds contradictory.
Isn't that the exact textbook definition of corporate suicide for a startup? How does the manifesto justify this massive dilution of focus and talent? You need specialized hardware engineers for cars, medical researchers for Parkinson's detection, and compiler experts for IDEs. The unit economics of building 10 distinct enterprise-grade products simultaneously seem physically impossible for a $700 million company.
It is the ultimate paradox of scaling, and your pushback is exactly what any seasoned venture capitalist would say. But this is why Bhagat's critique is so sharp and why he explicitly addresses this tension in the manifesto.
How does he resolve it?
He argues that the Solara paradigm is not feature creep.
How is building 10 things not feature creep?
Because feature creep is building random, disconnected tools you don't fully understand to appease noisy users before your core product actually works.
Okay.
What Bhagat is proposing is deliberate, overwhelming platform expansion executed only after you have nailed the foundational core. Wispr Flow survived the MPS panic because they fixed the core. The zero-edit dictation layer works beautifully.
They solved the hard part.
The fundamental historical problem of how do we extract flawless intent from messy human voice has been solved by this team. Now, according to the Solara paradigm, it is time to build the ecosystem on top of that solved problem.
I see.
You don't ask your current speech-to-text engineers to suddenly build a web browser. You raise $5 billion in capital. You acquire the 10 best specialized teams in the world for each vertical.
Do you give them unlimited resources?
And you unleash them to build these specific pillars using the VoiceOS intent engine as their foundation.
It requires a terrifying, almost megalomaniacal amount of confidence. You have to fundamentally believe that your core voice technology is truly a master key that seamlessly unlocks all these entirely disparate industries.
And that realization brings us to the biggest philosophical and sociological point in our deep dive today.
Right, zooming out.
Because this isn't just about Wispr Flow's valuation or Silicon Valley venture capital drama or who wins the software wars. It is about voice acting as the ultimate historic equalizer.
It's about voice becoming the definitive human-computer interface for the rest of human history.
If we connect all of this back to the broader global picture, the sources force us to reckon with the deeply exclusionary nature of our current technological landscape.
Which we never really talk about.
We don't think about it because we are accustomed to it. The graphical user interface, the mouse, the touch screen, the QWERTY keyboard, they feel natural to us because we grew up with them. We adapted our brains to them. But they are profoundly, inherently unnatural interfaces.
And because they're unnatural, they lock out billions of human beings.
Exactly. If you lack fine motor dexterity due to age or disability, a touchscreen is a frustrating nightmare. If you lack visual acuity, a graphical interface is useless.
And most importantly, if you are among the hundreds of millions of people globally who are illiterate or lack formal education, the text-based internet is a locked door.
It is an insurmountable barrier to participation in the modern economy.
The global accessibility argument presented here is just breathtaking. Voice completely defeats the illiteracy tax on global GDP. The manifesto paints this incredibly vivid, moving picture. A child in a rural village in India, a grandmother in a remote community in Africa, a factory worker anywhere in the world who never had the opportunity for formal education.
And suddenly, instantly, they can access the full breadth of the internet.
They can create multimedia content, they can write code, they can transact in the global digital economy, they can learn any subject from a personalized tutor simply because they can speak.
It bypasses the keyboard layout, the menus, and the text boxes completely.
It is framed in the sources not just as a massive trillion-dollar business opportunity, but as a profound moral imperative.
Speech is the most universal, hardwired human capability we possess. It doesn't care about the complexity of character sets like Mandarin or Arabic. It democratizes computing in a way that the smartphone only hinted at.
And the manifesto ties this technological leap to something almost spiritual. There is a brief, incredibly striking mention right at the beginning of the source material.
Yeah, that quote.
It simply says, "The impending age of abundance was prophesied in the scriptures thousands of years ago."
Yeah, that specific line really jumped out at me when I read it.
It is such a dramatic, jarring shift in tone from discussing ARR metrics and API integrations.
Yeah.
But it speaks perfectly to the sheer magnitude of the change Bhagat envisions.
Voice is the key to this abundance. Think about how much of your daily friction and multiply that by how much of humanity's collective historical friction comes from the laborious, slow process of translating human thought into a format a machine can understand.
What happens to global innovation, to art, to commerce, to scientific discovery, when that friction drops to absolute zero for 8 billion people simultaneously?
It is an age of abundance because the ultimate bottleneck between human thought and digital action is finally permanently removed.
It is a profound framing for what is essentially a software company. We're looking at a team that started with a Stanford student's ambitious dream of building a real-life Jarvis assistant.
We have watched them navigate the perilous, chaotic waters of startup growth.
Surviving their own massive success by ruthlessly focusing on quality during the NPS panic.
And now they find themselves standing at the precipice of history. They have built the foundational tool that could finally, permanently replace the 150-year-old tyranny of the QWERTY keyboard.
The underlying technology works. The zero-edit experience is real. The rocket is fueled and sitting on the launch pad.
And now leadership has to decide if they are going to fly that rocket safely to the grocery store to pick up some recurring revenue, or if they are going to point it at the stars and try to capture the entire ecosystem.
And I have to mention before we close, I absolutely love the sheer, unadulterated confidence of the author of this grand vision.
The ending of the manifesto.
Paramendra Kumar Bhagat doesn't just publish this sweeping multi-billion-dollar manifesto into the void of the internet. He ends it by directly tweeting at the CEO, Tanay Kothari.
Directly at him.
He outlines this impossible trillion-dollar roadmap, tells the CEO that Wispr Flow currently lacks the resources and the paradigm-shifting mindset to execute it alone, and then literally says, hire me as an outside consultant to help with this.
You just have to respect the absolute hustle of that pitch.
You really do.
Yeah.
It is the perfect quintessential Silicon Valley coda to a massive visionary document. You write the thesis that changes the world, and then you shoot your shot to get equity in it.
Exactly.
But before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you listening right now with a final thought. We have spent this entire time marveling at the mechanical brilliance of a VoiceOS that perfectly understands your intent. We have praised how it fixes your stutters, how it smooths out your rambling thoughts, how it dynamically adapts your tone to make you sound more professional, more composed, more perfect.
It acts as an elite, flawless editor.
Right, an editor between your raw internal thoughts and the external world. But if this technology reaches its ultimate flawless form, if there comes a day when the AI understands what you truly mean, better than you understand it yourself, and reconstructs your speech before anyone hears it.
What happens to the messy reality of human communication?
Exactly. If our technology perfectly polishes our raw, vulnerable, stuttering, iterative humanity before anyone else ever gets to see it, what do we actually lose in the edit?
That raises a truly fascinating question about the nature of authenticity in an age of perfect, frictionless translation.
Just something to mull over the next time you find yourself staring at a blinking cursor, wondering how to perfectly phrase your thoughts. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the end of the keyboard era and the dawn of the Solara Paradigm. Until next time.